Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy days to join us for this webinar. We're going to go through some topics today. Okay, let me get started. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody. We're going to go through about sensitive data, HIPAA, compliancy, privacy, intellectual property. We're going to have a bit of a demo on email encryption today, and we're going to basically and then we're going to have a Q&A at the end, have a conversation about any of these items. If you can please keep yourself muted at this point, that would be great. If you have any questions, and go into the chat and answer them. If not, if you can't, unmute yourself and ask the question, and then we'll continue on. Okay? Thank you very much for working with us today. So we all have in this world, we've become a pretty regulated world due to security, privacy concerns. We have HIPAA for medical records. We need to keep any information regarding our health information clear. We have SOX, which is public company financial information. It's required if we're a public company with disclosures. We have New York State has put regulatory requirements together for financial institutions. We have NYC 500. We have the SHIELDS Act, which is just coming to be. Other pieces of that just came to be March 20th of 2020. It still isn't even clear. New York State instituted it, but it doesn't have any guidance, doesn't have any pieces on it. But there are areas where we're all going to have to be aware of our security posture and what is relevant. Basically, for New York State, for the SHIELDS Act, they're saying for companies of 50 people and under, what is an appropriate security measure for the company? However, they did say if you fit HIPAA or your SOX or your other compliance pieces, you have fit the guidelines, or you're following NYC 500, so you will fit the guidelines for the SHIELDS Act. California is coming out with the Consumer Privacy Act. We're still working through some of that. And Europe has the GPDR. And a lot of people don't realize this. We have to look at GPDR if we're transacting with people that are from the EU. So it's not just if we're here, but if we have customers, clients that are EU citizens or dealing with any business over there, we're subject to the EU requirements. So, the data we currently have is some of us have PII, personal identifiable information data. We have some people's names, we have their birth dates, we have their social security numbers, etc. Maybe we have their credit card numbers. We have all this data in our networks, and some of it we may not be doing now, but some of it is there from times when these thoughts and regulations were not really in place the same way. We may have intellectual property. Our key business plans, our customer lists, trade secrets, all that kind of data probably sits on our network someplace. And we need to make sure we have control of that data, and we make sure that that data can't leave and that we have no requirements on that data. So imagine today, this is real situations that happen. We have a user, they have an email address with Office 365. They get an email in saying, hey, you need to go change your password. They go to that website, they click on it, they get an email website that looks just like Office 365. They enter their credentials and it fails. And like, something must be wrong with it, and they think nothing of it. Well, what we've done at that point is we've just entered it into a phished website. So now what happens is the bad guys get into our accounts. They don't start anything. They just get into the account. Maybe they set up a forward. Maybe they set up some other rules, and they start watching the email sometimes, and generally they're in there for 120 plus days. So they're seeing what the conversations are. They're seeing what's going on. They've downloaded your contact list. They've maybe downloaded some of your, every email you're getting is being forwarded off. And all of a sudden, something comes up where they see a funds transfer or they see something else and they get in the middle of the conversation and try and redirect the conversation. And then we get in there and we realize, okay, we've been compromised at this point. Now we have an issue going on. Now we have a real problem because we find out they've been in there for 3 months, and we found out that we've had spreadsheets of HR data, or we've had client confidential info, or we've had client social security numbers, or any other information. Now we have an issue where we have to report all that information off. We have to find out what happened. We may have a regulatory issue. We have some reputation issues. We have some costs with legal, other regulatory, maybe fines. These are all issues that we have to look out for when we talk about compromises in place and what we can do to mitigate those issues. These really do happen. We have seen it. We have experienced it. When we have taken on new clients, it has happened. We just took on a new client literally a few weeks ago, and as we were doing our investigation, we found Outlook rules in place for forwards and other stuff during our initial cursory event. And the data was really being exfiltrated, and there was a point where somebody inserted themselves in the middle of the conversation and actively worked to redirect funds transfers. So how do we protect ourselves? We look at it as a house, kind of to take the real simple portion of it. One of the things when we look at it, our house is, which we start to do, is we have a layered approach. We make sure we have locks on our doors. We originally had a door lock, then we put a deadbolt on it. Maybe if we're in an area, we have a fence. We put signs up. Then we go another layer. We put an alarm system in. We put motion sensors in. I know I have cameras in my own house. We join a neighborhood watch. We do everything we can to protect ourselves and make sure we have the best actions we can to protect our house. And basically, that's the same philosophy when we look at security for our company and what we have to do. So we turn around and we look at, what are the different pieces? So we have this grid of kind of like, where do we get started? We do an assessment. We look at, different pieces, your spam, your passwords, training, products. It's all a combination of what is appropriate for the business, what is the regulatory requirements, what's the business requirements. We have some clients that are not subject, for instance, to regulatory requirements, but their clients, for instance, are making the request that they have to have security in place if they want to transact business with that customer of theirs. So it's coming from all aspects of the business that we have to deal with, working on the security and what is happening in the business. So how do we protect ourselves? We make sure we have complex passwords. We don't use the same password across the board on all of our accounts. We just were doing a dark web scan with a client recently, and he had the same 5 or 6 passwords, and we did dark web scan, and it found out, that it came up for his bank account was in there. His logon for his Office 365 was in there. Luckily, that was protected with multi-factor authentication. Basically, these accounts, the passwords he regularly used were already out there on the dark web. So we have to be careful. What is the dark web? The dark web is basically kind of the black market of the internet. It's where data is. So the data today is what is really important. So, we know about the Equifax. We know about the other incursions. And when our information was stolen during those, they are sold on the dark web, and people can buy that data from there for pennies or dollars, and then they go and attack us with that data. So some of the ways we can solve and work through that is we can set up multi-factor authentication. That basically allows a second form of authentication. So what happens is when we go log into our Office 365, or we go log into our Dropbox, or we go log into remote access into our computers, we don't just have a password. We have a username and a password, as we always do, and we have a second form of authentication. A lot of times, an application on the phone with an authenticator that we have to enter a 6 or 7-digit code. Some of them are text messaging that we have to go, where we get a text message each and every time. We're all familiar with this with our banks. Banks have gone to this. So we really do that, and I encourage you to do that for all your data. We document who has access to our data. Typically, some of our networks, some of our information has been set up years ago. And so at that point, we didn't think about it that much. And so we gave everybody access to everything at a convenience. And we have to kind of start to roll that back and only give people who need access to the data have access. So, if Jane had access to, if Jane's not in sales, but maybe she's a customer service manager, whatever, maybe she needs customer service stuff, but she doesn't need access to the contracts for the clients, or maybe she doesn't need access to all the customers that she's not supporting. So maybe we have it segregated in groups where she only has access to the customers she's supporting. So if she's compromised, it's not everything, it's only the data that she has. All of our portable and mobile devices should be encrypted. So that is a key piece, and I'll come back around and discuss that a little further in detail. So multi-factor authentication. It's built into most of the, as I say here, it's built into most of the applications we use. Office 365 includes it for free. If we're on Google, Google Business uses it, Dropbox, share files, even Amazon. I have it set up for my personal Amazon shopping. I go enter my username, I'm prompted for a two-factor authentication. It really provides that additional layer. It's not a beginning and end all, but it provides us a layer of safety for our accounts. So any account that is set up for the internet, business-wise or personally-wise, should have MFA on it. For instance, I have a Microsoft account on my personal side. I use it for OneDrive for business. I also have a Gmail account. All my accounts are set up for two-factor authentication. Basically, I live in the paranoid world that whatever information I have, somebody could guess my password, even though I use complex passwords, and even though I find it an inconvenience, it'd be a much bigger inconvenience if my data was stolen, or I had that embarrassing situation where I had to go tell people that my data was stolen. So, encryption. As the world has gotten, as we've looked at things and as technologies move forward, all of our data should be encrypted. All your data sitting in the Microsoft platform is encrypted in transit and at rest. At rest means that basically when you're not touching the data and you're not accessing the data is encrypted. Unless you log in, nobody has access to the data, including Microsoft. So all of our data should be encrypted on our network, on the networks, in transit, in every place we go. Laptops should always have disk encryption enabled. It's built into all the Windows Pro versions, which is an important aspect when we think about right now the work from home scenario. If we have employees and we say to them, here, you can use your personal computer and you can download all your applications and you can work on all your data at home, and they have a laptop and they take it out and that laptop's stolen, your client, what happens with your client data at that point? The Windows Pro version has it, and and Apple has it built in. So there's a very interesting point to this point. So if a laptop is enabled with BitLocker encryption on it, and you are under a regulatory issue, and the laptop, and you have complex passwords, and you have all your pieces on it, and the laptop is lost or stolen, you have no regulatory issues because and you have no problems. You have to just make a footnote in some log, a log that you have, that it was an incident where the laptop was lost, it was not recoverable, you cannot see it on the network, disk encryption was there, the account was, password was reset or disabled, and the data is no longer accessible to anybody. The users can take the laptop, they can pull a hard drive out. That hard drive is what we would say is a brick. They can't access any of the data on it. So it's a really important point. Little portable USB keys, these little things, they also should be encrypted. If we lose this key and we have key data on it, we have an issue. So we really should make sure those are encrypted. It's the same thing. If that data is encrypted, we lose the key, we don't have an issue. If we don't have it encrypted and we lose the key, or even worse, we don't even know that we lost the key, you know, confidential data could be lost. Mobile devices. Apple and the latest Android phones have encryption enabled by default. We have policy in place that basically enforces that. If you have a user that's using a 4-year or older Android phone, honestly, I'd really encourage them to replace the phone, because when you enforce encryption on some of those older phones, they don't perform well. But I think we're at the point where every phone is encrypted. And basically the biggest piece we have to make sure is that they've got a lockout code for the phone, because when the phone is open, we don't have, you know, a user, the encryption is disabled at that point. So we have to make sure that we have a lockout for 5 minutes, 15 minutes. And all the regulatory agencies that we discussed at the beginning of the SOX, HIPAA, NYCRR 500, New York Shields, California Protection, all require disk encryption on our devices. So kind of switching gears now, talking about email security. We've been using email to conduct business for all of us, probably, depending on our age, 20 plus years. We've all sent, I know including myself, 10 years ago, I used to send data with credit card information, birth date information, other information of regular email. And it's a change in habit. I can tell you 12 to 18 months ago, I was dealing with a personal situation. I'm board in my building, and I got an email from an attorney, and it was sent to 7 or 8 other people. It had my social security number on it, had my birth date on it, had my address on it, had all my personal identifiable information on it. I called the attorney, and I'm like, you know, you can't send this. And he's like, yes. He's like, I got to change my habits. I got to really rethink how we're doing stuff. It's a cultural change. It's a cultural difference in how we work. And I think that's an important aspect of this, is we have to change and train everybody to stop and think, and we can't just do things the way we always did it. So we need to have that data we need to constantly rethink that and put it through. So all data, as I'm saying, with PII, financial, HIPAA, must be sent encrypted. Microsoft, which most of you use, offers email encryption built into the platform. Some people do not like the offering. It's a little clunky. I'm actually going to show you in a minute or two what the Microsoft receiving an email on a Gmail account looks like, and receiving from a third-party offering that we use. We also have policies that we can set up inside of our Office 365 and other places to prevent data from being sent out. For instance, we have pieces in our own network that if account numbers or credit card numbers or social security numbers are sent out, the emails are automatically encrypted and the user has no choice in that. You can also say you don't want the email to go out. You can say you want to redirect the email so you can have a discussion with the person. So all sorts of policies and procedures and other items that we can do to really prevent PII data from being sent out, protect ourselves, protect our organization. So sending out emails. switch gears. Okay. So I'm going to send out of my email right now. Share my Outlook screen for a second. I sent out emails. You'll see here, this email says encrypt. This is the Office 365 email encryption. I sent it to my personal Gmail account. And we have set it up for testing where we have used a little squiggly lines on the word encrypt, and any email will go out to encryption. And then we have a third-party product that we use that makes it seamless and easy to send out encrypted emails. But from the sending perspective, either one is very easy to do. On this one, we call it, right here, this one we call it brackets, because all we have to do on any email is put the brackets around it, and the email is automatically encrypted. Okay, now let me shift to my Gmail account. And you'll see here, this is an email from Office 365, the native built-in email encryption. It's a little clunky. This is the email you get. You'll see you've encrypted a message from Encryption. So I will need to open the attachment. If I'm using Gmail, I need to download the attachment. I open the attachment. I'm going to use a one-time passcode. I'm going to come back to my email here. So it's a multi-step process. I've got my passcode. I'm going to paste my passcode in here. Okay. Sorry, the FedEx guy just came to the house. Thanks for working from home. And this is what the email looks like. Now I can reply in here, and I can send an encrypted email back. Okay. So that's, excuse me. That is the native built-in Office 365 email encryption. So here is a third-party product we use that we offer and we use internally for our clients. You'll see here, you received a secure email. I click on View Message, and the email opens up in a web browser that's secure. I can only open it once like that. Next time I will need to sign into the account. And I can then reply to the email. Okay. Or I can export that email into my inbox at that point, and it'll come through. So, or I can delete it. So those are some of the options available in email encryption options. And I'll come back to PowerPoint. Okay. So that's basically how we use it. We use the bracket email encryption quite a bit. I'm sorry. And it works really well on the mobile phone. The Office 365 at times can be a little clunky also on the phone, as you need to download a separate OME viewer attachment to look at the emails. So that's the end of my presentation for today. I'm going to open it up for questions, comments. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask any questions. Well, I'm assuming, based on the lack of people asking questions or anything else, that everybody's got what they're looking for. And I want to thank everyone for their time and efforts today. Have a wonderful day, be safe, and thank you again.